Hello, Drew Barrymore. I'm begging you for your help because there are women and our men in collusion as experts involved with the kid with people countering people who hurt kids in collusion with them. Now it is not hard to discern how this has been since founding. All exceptions are exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. And that is also relevant to where and how they have been teaching other, and they've been using and making and keeping theories used to keep trouble and to keep, as part of the roles, they've been hiding live aggressions with the principal child abusers campus since before that, during it, and since. And there were other uses of it and of how they have juxtaposed natures of child abuse and uses of the experts, because this is also inter-campuses, inter-cities through time. Campuses of the same ages and natures, ones in the same town, inter and intra-campuses method. It also uses confessions. It also uses roles with arrests of children, where and how the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and killers, people lying off the body, dumping spots, investigations are recorded, used remotely. So they have the people that we need to rely on as a certain type of victim, as fact treatment nature, as syntax nature. So there'd be victim predators, where we are function nature, incapable of affording defense of free speech. And so using phrases like free speech and freedom of expression, criminally foreign influenced, and delusions wrought simultaneously, which is also relevant because there was more relevant simultaneous. Where they have the coordination between their delusions influenced positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, sequence treatments, value treatments, and they're criminally foreign influenced simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously. So it's easy to present. All I'm asking is, they've been forging names and switching names. Put them on paper. They've been fabricating audio and video since I was a little kid with the same people from Hartford courts and the Britain courts, personally involved with people and their family members, with instances relevant and with the names relevant, that brought themselves upon me too. There's a pattern of people that did that I don't know. I had nothing to do with them. They made exceptions. This also exploits that theater that we are as suburbs and as urban areas and as suburban/urban as Hartford was conceived. And this is also, Wethersfield/Hartford is also relevant to George Washington, where and how he was worse than extorted, forced to leave slavery, entrenched in the North and the South, and forced to leave, roles with the plan to overcome that. But that was only to overcome one part of it. It was one method, but that was not the method. That was only one method, one type of slavery, and that was array. All did, it was sickly distinctly to keep from sickly non-distinctly from being discerned, simultaneously to keep everything that how sickening non-distinctly was causing, to keep it, those acts, natures, blame the other things, others and or themselves, even when correctly, so they could keep that more and more defended. Logic styles, premises treatment styles, they can't defend themselves and afford proper uses of premises treatment, sequence treatments. The Constitution unabridged, what that means. So it's all right if people want to debate that legitimately, but they have not been. They have a little theater trick. They're using truths for lies. In other words, well, this is the process. We have to have this much majority to get something, so that's how legislation works. They don't even show what they're talking about, because the locations, areas, and states were kept self-valued Databases tied, but at all locations exploited. Criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments. And then they knew that they more and more could keep it even further and further. Remote uses of all formal evidence perception, locations, criminally foreign influence, styles needing to pretend other, like uses of words like research or documents. They are preventing mandated law. The NBC Connecticut News attached me and my family, people tied to them, to fake words and locations. They prevent people from speaking individually. They force them to speak as groups. Or they force them just fabricated audio and video transcripts, totally made up and mixed with ones changed to replace actually recorded reality. It is recorded. A whole bunch of people at Trinity College recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed are involved with names on my street that Wethersfield police also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, recorded over the past half a year. And before that, right before the pandemic too, they've been using Facebook and YouTube policing from off YouTube and from off Facebook, keeping them collusion with themselves, pretending other. These are people that already used interbranch locations for this. They have roles with predicate acts and wrongdoing in cases as people that coordinated roles with identity thefts and frauds instances on and off campuses. They consciously, they have like all these social lives and things together, separate from everybody. They're pretending people were involved with them that weren't. In other words, they made exceptions in exception nature. That's what they use confessions for too, from strangers. This is a method that they're adapting to. They set it up really crazy at first because they knew they were going to have to bring it in phases, where and how everyone is sickly, distinctly hurt, to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. So not one has learned what the difference between chief/president means. So not even chiefs and presidents could have the resources to defend or remember a legitimate identity of the ground, capable campus system, memory of the ancients. The syntax nature, people talk about rights. It's like a broken grammar school that never ended. And so the adults, they pretend like being adult is, some kind of a narrative towards, it's about being theater as criminal insidious. In other words, they can't afford criminal insidiousness countered legitimately. So they've been increasingly self-valuing how the predicate acts and criminal insidious natures and wrongdoing, fact-cheating nature-oriented stuff too, especially. This is where and how we are function nature. So it's nothing against the linguistics experts, but all the sciences individually grouped together, including the religions. They have them valued with physical delusions. So the psychologists and psychiatrists associated with hospitals, their triages, when there are needs for people to yell, where and how violence and guns and smoke and poison and verbal predicate acts and falsified police reports roles, and roles with the interbranch with that. They've been involved since before founding as victims, but as victim predators. So if they want to be shown how as victims, they have to allow us mandated law outside of courts. So they painted themselves into corners with a method that keeps the kids criminally foreign influence with interbranch families. They have the people with the what do they call it? The board of education involved with identity thefts and frauds, federal crimes with their kids that are not legitimately their roles with the acting teachers, with the plainclothes officers involved with them all along Church Street, and with spots on Church Street, with a house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street, as one's involved with this, with former Governor Malloy, and they're lying too. Good governor, because everyone's lying with everyone else too, because they've been speaking about politics. They can't defend what they've been saying. They've been using truths for lies. So we could use, I'll donate for women a whole business, and then the whole gaming system of it is to make it applied. Because, how could anyone defend women's rights and what they've been saying at the same time? In other words, they're inconducive we can't even grow vegetables. And then the people stacking. And all the narratives and defenses of that only capable of fathoming. New York, other countries, the same thing. We're in the same semi-ancient trap. Countries A through Z, suits and ties, counters to them in collusion. Not wanting to be, not realizing. And that all is used remotely, not just there. It maintains it from low uses of locations with another method, another nature of organized crime tied to all those others, all those apparent and real motivations, natures, needs, interests for insidious natures of positive treatment, inclusion with insidious, overt, evil acts, methods, and natures. Again, of logic, too. So logic has not spoken for us. The people who have the most knowledge about computers, they are valuing uses of it to get over on people needing to tell on people. And per their little rat holes that are, excuse my language, that tell on people, including the interbranch, that are telling on people illegitimately because they're just needing to hide live progressions. Because when they were little kids, they were victims. And that's recorded. But they won't let that demonstrate because the only reason I know them is because how they are predators. It is also that brought up how they are victim predators, recorded. Not victim of me. They're pretending other because I have to use their names. And they bring up so many names that people can't use names. And then they pretend that people make allegations against others. They pretend conversations with people to do that too, formally. So the people tied to them and their family members are and have been on Facebook through administrations, on-off elections locations, on-off schools, with the schools, police. The only ones there to be against drugs and medicines crimes, involved with the drugs and medicines crimes, and with the patients, and with the doctors of the patients and criminals, including child abusers, before they were caught. They were involved with worse natures of federal crimes and drugs and medicines crimes with their doctors and with those various natures of courts. Recorded how kept needing to hide the same sequence, finite active progressive lies with them, and even further corruption of the elections location, that is Wethersfield town offices, also further involved with fire departments, intercities, and locations next to them, uses of that, as their roles with the intercampuses and intercampuses racketeering, and worse than war crimes. And then pretending people make, in other words, they've been attaching parents to fabricated audio and video with the FBI. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his defendant capacities, and his lawyer, and a whole bunch of federal criminals and ones that were his defendants in a 2006 district court case are also ones in the past recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts on the child campuses that are further hiding from me and attaching me and others to fake locations. They owe me a response. So Governor Malloy, or Governor Malloy, but Governor, you could still do what's right and get me someone to respond to in paper, because they also They have a Bob Chase. They have people with a Whiting Forensics place, also involved with a Joshua Julian, with a whole bunch of male and females that are involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids, uses of Facebook page with the principal child abuser. And Rolls forced that. And they have the Coast Guard involved with that. All kinds of people with drugs and medicines, crimes at CCSU with the various departments associated with the corner of Church Street and Main Street, and with the Hanson family on that street. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts and untimely deaths when I was a kid, and then timed uses of that and rolls with more with other related untimely deaths on Trinity College connected to ones on my street in the same names that were involved with that, and with the Wethersfield Police Department, a Smith family. There's that I don't know if they're related to the Judge Smith. There's a Judge Smith I had to write a complaint about years ago. He's also involved with the families involved with on Facebook with federal crimes, with the fire department and with the Wethersfield Police Department and with New Britain Superior Court and with Officer Jerry Miller and other officers. Two Mendez police attached me to fake words through time. Their roles with attached me to fake quotations with the adult officer I never had a conversation with in my life. Never had a word sense with him in my life. And they switch names. They have, and then they pretend it's cultural. They have different cultural names because they also have roles with KKK themed black military police forged with falsified police reports, identity thefts and frauds roles, other natures of predicate acts and wrongdoing, and with the various natures of courts. So we have problems at locations that courts and police forms and prosecutors, and political families and their family members have roles with. And they don't have the right to prevent mandated law outside of courts. And they don't have the right to switch names and forge names and prevent writing. So I need them in one sequence. Since I was a kid, the same people involved at West Hartford locations were recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, used by Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court and people on and off the state judicial branch offices and people on and off the state prison offices, the houses next to it, involved with Lance Cuddy, and with the names brought up by the confessions of the Wethersfield police over the past month, like 7-8 months ago, and before that, and through that time. So with Officer Sullivan, and they have roles with uses of men using the woman name Sullivan, officer's name, as the men. They have police forms intercities involved with abuses of women that are confessed, tied to their roles with the CCSU, and with confessions to strangers, and with uses of that with other people like Heather Hanson is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people on and off the state, on and off the business department, and with military police families and Wethersfield police, also on Newington locations, involved with like police forms that are criminally foreign influenced, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and all kind of foreign and domestic, even Kuwaiti military roles with medical racketeering, with prisons and with medical locations, with psychiatry and with psychology, and with their roles with data racketeering, identity thefts. So the news companies, the national/international news, like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox Connecticut News, they are fake sides of issues that are in collusion. So I'm gonna put them as one source because they are preventing mandated law outside of courts because they already have roles recorded with predicate acts in courts every day and at all locations, and especially where there is people stacking in New York. See, you're going to learn hyperalgebra. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal. I'm not a military. Hyperalgebra reveals how you make positives out of negative. Reveals how you make positive that is also positive unto itself out of negative. Algebra is still making positives out of negatives that are criminal insidiousness natures of positives with its logic. For example, in other words, if you say, okay, I didn't cause these crazy colonization laws, but I have to do something, so I'm going to do this. And this is going to hurt these people, so I'm just going to ignore it. That's the way it is. So not even judging that. The premises treatments are going to be criminally foreign influence. Now, if it judges someone else while it's doing that, which is what, in other words, the interbranch are doing. They've been using Facebook's name. There was a Dr. Zeman who sought me out to make confessions, and about his roles with Facebook and child sex offenders, and further people associated, recorded, tied to Smith family with the Wethersfield town offices and Wethersfield Police Department, where it used to be in now, with more names associated with drugs and medicines crimes, and with roles with the untimely death clique on and off Trinity College, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, leading up to a 2006 district court case, and since involved with federal crimes with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants, like a Thaddeus Grabowski, involved also with uses of an Alison Mulcahy and these two Mendez brothers on and off Fox Connecticut News. The location right next to it too, there. Through time with Intercities. That's in Hartford, Connecticut, and that's near the state capitol. There's also buildings near there's also people with that St. Anthony's Church, and with the buildings next to it, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with courts and police forms with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, all juxtaposed, hurting the kids through time. And they pretend all things from backgrounds where their roles preventing people writing, and their self-value and all that's tied to their sequence shift solutions, and making opinions about people, pretending and theories about what we're speaking about. I asked you to get them onto paper. They've been hiding this from or with the Fox Connecticut, the Fox News judges with our national/international. Again, they are fake sides of, there are rules with elections locations, criminally foreign influence, not just criminally foreign influence, as ones that are specifically involved with the World Trade Center. There is a Dan Keene. I don't know his mother's name. I asked her for help. In other words, maybe Joe DeMauro and Mike Kerr. Mike Kerr has a father named Jerry Kerr and has a brother named Jerry Kerr. And they're also involved a whole bunch of ways at CCSU and with the Newington locations, involved with identity thefts and frauds, also in the form of falsified police reports and rules with the pattern of judges speaking fake things into databases and lying about the natures of ties we have to people and lying about the ties, pretending we have fake ties to people we don't even know because they are involved as actually recorded, being and having been using all locations, areas, and states to hide their life progressions, to hide their actually recorded natures. So please follow mandated law for the networks, because this is where and how they're using everyone with notions about who's legitimate, everyone fighting, but they're not using sequence true. They don't have the right to lie in context where they use the right to lie since founding. That's what Jim Crow laws are about. When they try to explain them now, they're shock and awe. They were applied roles, making others shock and awe, keeping them, because we stayed that. We stayed blaming others correctly, but simultaneously blaming it wrongly. And that's increasingly self-valued by locations, areas, and states that are all fakes. So you have to, and needed to pretend other. What science spoke honestly for what causes negative value nature progressions, accidents in areas like Hartford where there are shootings reported all the time? Like recently, one's on Wethersfield Avenue and one's near Zion Street and Trinity College. You guys can't afford to interpret information that might come into you correctly now. You guys are already involved with Hartford Police, with the Wethersfield Police, and with the police forms. Other police forms since founding, they're still playing this stupid broken game where they're pretending only the local cops are only involved with local cops. They're criminally foreign influence with the federal police forms. Now they're also telling people to lie about others outside of courts, which is part of the method. So please follow mandated law. If you want to debate me, have them if someone wants to debate me, have them debate what I'm reporting is the interbranch switching and forging names. Male and females, judges, black and white female judges involved with child offenders of juxtaposed natures and uses of them, and women that work with the courts that were lied to by the men involved with them, that were involved with data reception, racketeering, and drugs and medicines crimes they do and don't. And or if they don't, their friends and everyone's speaking through everyone. Like just Jonathan Maiano is involved with sequence shifts, uses of their families, their confessions about their family members. One time I let John Maiano come with me to a boxing fight in Rhode Island, and we didn't, my father had never had a conversation with him. My father doesn't know John Maiano. In other words, these people they exploit exceptions. In other words, and then he's got his brothers involved with this, with the San Juan Center and other, which is in Hartford, which is with intercities, with people that are involved with the locations next to schools. They're also involved with drugs and medicines crimes with them that are fact treatment nature oriented, because these are doctors and people that work with the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, and their family members personally criminally involved with them. They also brought up their rules as the people on off the St. Anthony's Church near Fox, Connecticut News. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I don't know them. They sought me out to make confessions about their ties to a John Laurie. I don't know who John Laurie is. I don't know who his parents are. But they said it's near the corner of Highcrest and Hangdog Lane. And John Maiano, it's got something to do with a whole bunch of people in Middletown involved with medical racketeering and drugs and medicines crimes with a Phil Cololo. I also had nothing to do with. But no, the Maiano, they made exceptions when I did it. I stayed back, which is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Since before that, I didn't say anything till now. I've been saying things, parts of it. They brought all these names and things up. Two speech teachers I never had a personal conversation with, not one. They have the people that a guy who said he was a partner of a Dylan guy who made a confession in my speech class in high school, and the girl next to me was also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having been child abused by people on off the state prison offices involved with the neighbors, with this name Cololo. They brought up, which is one of my neighbors, that one of the police switching names brought it up. And they brought up themselves when I was a kid about how judges and prosecutors were involved, and Wethersfield police pulled them and their family members in, and other kids, to put fake things, to attach them to, Chris Walters gave me an affidavit regarding this. They would bring up subjects to strangers and make all these confessions. Then the police would call. I never went down there with my family. They were lying when they were calling, not legitimately. They were also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with unions criminally. And as people that steal through the unions, through their leaders, through time. And like, for example, they have UPS leadership. There's an Oliveri family that sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. People involved with UPS were involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack in it, and leading up to a 2006 district court case involved with various natures of federal criminals on and off news locations. A whole bunch of police forms on and off Elm Street and Rocky Hill. And with the fire departments, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with offensive evidence perception, racketeering, acts, and identity thefts and frauds, styles, as that. And everyone speaking to other, pretending they don't realize. These are also people that were involved with the classes that I had when I was a kid, with people that are involved with predicate acts with the courts and the police forms and uses of mayors and their kids, and then uses of those people's kids now that they're older, pretending that they're the need to hide. Actually, how I know them. I never had a conversation with them. I never responded to all these confessions that somebody Bajerio made in my life. In other words, Subby Bajerio was involved with some kids, including his own, with some men and women in New Britain, Connecticut, and on and off a principal child abusers campus. And with more doctors, like a Leahy family has their own kids, and the one who had his kids when they were little, attaching other people to fake locations, spreading lies about people. So I know I never had anything to do with Rick Cian Faglione and the O'Brien clique. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved through time with criminal uses of the corners of Highcrest Street, involved with their identity thefts and frauds and wire crimes and falsified police reports, roles with Wethersfield Police Department, other police departments, and courts personally criminally involved with them, and people involved with Sandy Hook with them criminally, and Newtown further criminally, and with confessions tied to uses of the Soto family. I don't know the Soto families. And one's on off the 3 spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike, a Spada family, and others involved with the 3 spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike have roles with the spot with identity thefts and frauds of people at the end of the near the state capitol, involved with the former director of the FBI and his lawyer, and with other countries and overt criminal enterprises that also coordinated on and off campuses, connected identity thefts and frauds, and roles with narratives where and how they have the police forms and the courts personally criminally involved with the bad things that are going on through the kids. Also per how they kept and keep that force sustained, juxtaposed uses of force, juxtaposed natures of abuses of little boys and girls, even sexual, even online, even within the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page. And they made more Facebook pages. They obfuscated things. The people so then they want to go and have talk about Facebook in the Congress. They're coaching Facebook to hide they're forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading them. Also, there's a woman, I believe named Sanders or something associated with them. There's a what's her name? I don't know her. Celeste Wells. She told me that they made it. She confirmed that they used her to make exceptions. So one of the kids that was making confessions about a weirdo kid and a weirdo brother, making confessions about her breasts, her friend's breasts. And here and about there, he shared with it right in front of his father. So me, I was raised, you don't talk about the girls with your parents. It's like weird. And I don't know. I only know those people from confessions. They sought me out to make all these confessions about their roles when I was in middle school with overt criminal enterprises, and with confessions from others when I was in grammar school. So I only know, the people from I went to grammar school with, that I never saw around, hardly ever, all exceptions demonstrate. So the same thing, and they're tied to them a whole bunch of ways. Fact, keeping age-oriented why, with people in the confessions of a people I don't know, in this pattern from before the World Trade Center attack. They also brought up, they also have Connecticut boxing gyms tied to the same people. There's a Delafair family involved with the same house, involved with the family members and their extended family members, with the child sex offenders and the doctors involved with them with drugs and medicines crimes, with overt criminal enterprises, and some judges' families, some judges criminally involved, speaking fake things, involved spreading lies about others for their kids. So there's a Delafair family, a whole bunch of Delafair brothers. I don't even know all their names, and their girlfriends, and their other boyfriends are their girlfriends at the same time, in inclusion with the same judge, same judges, and the men and women in their family. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed it's intercities, like Rocky Hill locations. It has something to do with on the border place. And Rob Rodriguez is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated roles with one of the untimely deaths on my street. Confession tied to that. As I gang thefts and frauds roles. A stranger walking up to me with a confession like that. And worded like that right up front. Like, you know, to pretend he knew me, and I had a conversation before that. As one of the ones with the Wethersfield police that used to answer phones for them, and the fire department police form. There's an Inspector Mike also involved with this. I don't know the last name. See, they don't give names so they can lie about the responses of people while they're stacking names. So there's a female, Wethersfield police said they have a female officer, Sullivan, that they use when they use the name of by male officers when they need to hide lie progressions. They also confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed roles with federal crimes, with the police forms, with the internet, and with some Pakistani families, and with some people with Puerto Rico, involved on and off Trinity College, also involved with the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steen Highway, involved through time also with Afghanistan families, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed criminally foreign influence with them, victim predators. They're keeping a certain nature of stupid only allowed to speak in Afghanistan or for them, and in America or for America. There are little rules with identity thefts and frauds. Well, these girls are on a robotics team. They don't care about those girls. Follow mandated law. They have these deans forging and switching names, games, roles, fake letters. They're planting evidences at locations are interbranch still because they were used remotely. And they use everyone. I don't know this Brian Salvo too. I never saw him around. His name was also one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the World Trade Center stuff, which also has ties. Corner of Main Street and like the Hanson house also has a corner house there. And there's another house on that street. I don't know I forgot his name now. He looks just like one. I'm not saying that killer. But there's another one tied to the name Kalolo that I barely know. See, I was trying to figure this stuff up because they made all those confessions through all other people. They exploit this theater where you have people that live near you, but you'll never see them in your whole life. And they're going to hear about you through people that pretended to know you in contexts where they only know you because they sought you out to make confessions and or to fabricate things. So, Eric Jensen and Mike Pandolf and Joe DeMauro and Ray Colell recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there were some judges and prosecutors and overt criminal enterprises and people involved with the campuses, involved with drugs and medicine crimes and crimes with databases, other kids' names, sequence shifts with them, that are also with people on and off a Dearborn Street in Newington, that's also with the Judge Smith is one of the ones involved and people with Wethersfield town offices. A Denny Terrell, nice woman. I never had a problem with Denny Terrell, but I mean, that the exception nature. Whatever she was told about me was a fake, and they wouldn't give me writing when I was a kid. But the Wethersfield town offices was then too. Such ways also recorded, demonstrated, confirmed through time. Involved also with the pattern of untimely deaths, confessions to me, and uses of it, as the ones who then years later had untimely deaths, uses of it, as the ones on off my campuses, and then as coordination with the people in the federal crime, and the federal, like, district court case in Connecticut has a whole bunch of people that were there to watch the plaintiff, and most of the people, like all these federal criminals, were there to watch the defendants, which former director of the FBI was one of them, and like pension thieves, like, and stuff like that. Dominic Lepriato is one of the ones on and off Dearborn Street in Newington, involved with Eric Jensen and Mike Pandolf. Ray Cololo, confessions, crimes with judges with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts and their family members. They also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Sal Cerviello, I only saw him one time real fast in the presence of Eric Jensen. They made that as an exception to pretend they know him. I had no personal conversation. He made a confession about their roles with, whatever. Sal Cerviello, part of it was nonverbal confession and demonstrated confirmation. So this is also relevant to how they've been using their narratives across the country, the board of directors of schools, because they have them in collusion where and how they have locations, areas, and states. They need to hide from the actually inherent active and progressive means of correlation nature at all locations, areas, and states, and then further into sciences, and then further at all locations. So they've been exploiting it, and there is stuff manifest relative to the locations and names next to schools. So we have Wethersfield, there's a Whiting forensics place, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, with judges I don't know the names of, and with drugs and medicines crimes, and with physical delusions, with child sex offenders, and with people involved with body dumping spots, and with that Whiting forensics place, also through time wire crimes with the Connecticut news media, and with the national news media. So MSNBC, CNN, and Fox Connecticut News. I can't repeat all these names of the officers also forging and switching names and roles, fabricating police reports with them, and predicate acts with them at locations roles, like next to relevant body dumping spots. The roles with uses of the person of a serial killer for other natures of predicate acts before that and since he's been recorded, locked away, and demonstrably. That location, the locations next to the body dumping spot are also involved in having been involved before the World Trade Center, what I caught the Hartford courts and the New Britain courts involved with. And they don't understand themselves because they've been used remotely since they were victim predator kids, incapable of speaking for integrity and for America and for positive, but speaking anyway. So, and pretending legitimate as told, sick. So science never spoke for Hartford, Connecticut. Science never spoke for New York City. Simultaneously, it hasn't spoken for any identity, let alone, it hasn't spoken for how the suburbs are tactically denatured. They were tactically denatured before our founding parents were even born to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to make exceptions, to keep how exception nature is really supposed to be used with logic from being discerned, to keep illusions at locations they could keep exploiting where they had sick interbranch evidence perception that could not defend itself and afford the speech of a constitution or the nature of the Constitution unabridged as the agenda of the soul of any person, so to speak. Whispers Creek. So, let's get them onto paper. I'll show you how we could fight, who's for native rights too. I'll give them a business too. So that's the business idea for the charity, not on charity on paper. It'll be, if we could do 10, we could do, what is it? 10% has to go to charity. Could do 10% to charity, and then instead of having the appointment, have it all. That's what will make it fun to play the game, because it'll be invested, not invested. It'll be used where we're going to couple it with more, so we know we're going to get full value for whatever the women's rights machine brings in. We're going to tie it to we have to claim the identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself, criminally foreign influence and delusions wrought simultaneously, because that's what is recorded. And that's also relevant to how it has a relevancy to an identity of hyper-simultaneous that shows a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to that extra that has to be spoken about more and more from the way it is naturally. See, there is a juxtaposed. The natural way will keep it demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. So we have a nature problem. We have natural reception problem. Earth simultaneously concentrated relationship where consciousness could discern our distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature, being its the identity of simultaneous nature. We don't use faith like that. In other words, hyperalgebra doesn't make positive out of negatives, and then defend that syntax nature. It uses negative, and what is negative and positive simultaneous, to discern the hyper-simultaneous, which has means to only increase positive value nature progressions, acts, nature means out of nowhere here. Or if we don't use its system, it forces it from here. Lethal IDs, forced space nature transfer. This is more probable than we read in books. Lawyers worse than crooks want to be thought of as crooks. Like Trantolo and Trantolo, involved with hiding and making up stories with the news and with, as an advertising company, as lawyers, preventing people mandated law, pretending they make allegations, and pretending and making up, changing. They probably even there are also roles with fabricated audio and video transcripts. So let's get them to get the judges' names and prosecutors' names on paper who've been playing these games with these Wethersfield police, forging and switching names, and with like this Detective Samuda and the others involved with the women and little kids, girls, young women and girls that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he was involved with sexual abuses also with doctors and ones with badges associated with various hospitals, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with overt criminal enterprise, all kinds of drugs, medicines, crimes with these guys. Also delusions raw. Also roles with race crimes with some white power Confederate flag themed military police involved with the principal child abusers campus and the girls that have my name used with them with their little fakes that grew up spreading lies so they could, whatever. There's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with where and how Trinity College and CCSU recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they were influenced to predicate acts from off those campuses by the people criminally involved then in their defendant capacities and as overt federal criminals is known. And since before that, some of the co-defendants are former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. In other words, these are ones that were involved with predicate acts at campuses where I went to when I was a kid. And then they coordinated illusions pretending to know me off campuses with quick exceptions. And, and then in other words, that is what they know is recorded, but they're also recorded themselves pretending other in background. In other words, they have to hide this from presidents. This is how locations, areas, and the states force presidents to, and force these fake sides, parties, and these media that pretend they're different from each other, but they're inclusion, hiding, worse. Follow mandated law for the media. They're fake.